Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Tonight is Thursday, June 6th, 2024. This is live stream 1065. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, simply hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will usually pontificate on a topic related to our hobby, which is something I'm certainly going to be doing tonight. But of course, we're not engaged in any sort of heavy mental lifting or mental heavy lifting or lifting heavy mentals. By any stretch of the imagination, we're just hanging out, having some fun. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, this is a live stream, so that means there is chat available. Now, it's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber for at least an hour to the channel for you to take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of those more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, if you get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. Is with us. He is one of our chat moderators. Cthulhu is with us, as is the ultra-American tabletop role-playing gamer. I believe this is the first time they're joining us in chat. Melanie from York is also popping on in. Cthulhu asks, playing heavy mental music? Yeah, man. I love that heavy mental. But jamming. Actually, I kind of grew up with metal. But, my metal back in the day is not this metal, right? Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with it. All I'm saying is, I grew up with like Judas Priest and the Scorpions and Access and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. Sean O'Donnell and Lord Cos 2000 are also with us. So Sean asks, how was my day off? It was fine. I actually spent my day getting everything ready for today and getting my comic book stuff. The news that pops up on Sunday. If you are a comic book fan, you probably already know that on Sundays, all the various different publishers, we post the major publishers for comics, what's coming out that week. So I got that all taken care of. So I have got an open schedule in order to shoot video. So hopefully see a little bit more video done this weekend than in most weekends. Although the reality is I did share, 3, 4 videos last week. Of course, with the streams as well. So we did go have barbecue, got to see my nephew because I hadn't seen him in a few months because he was deployed to Africa. So that was cool. And we're discussing getting together to play games. And it looks as if the 15th, I'm going to kick off some Dungeon Crawl Classics. Yes. going to run the gang through a Harley Stro funnel. Flaming Heron's with us in chat asking, does Jeff really have a day off? Fridays are kind of my day off. Fridays, I normally will do very little related to the website. In fact, Friday mornings is usually when I take care of the comic book news. So and then usually for the rest of the day, I kind of just kick it. I'll, usually be reading some RPG stuff or, reading through some rules for board games and stuff. But I don't dive too heavily into working on the Gaming Gang on Fridays. Yes. So I should mention, today marks the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. I'm sure all of you are aware of this. What I find very sad these days is how many Americans sit there and they kind of wish we hadn't done that, or wish that our endeavor with the Allies had not been successful. It is a sad statement, I must say. And hopefully those sorts of folks will go the same way as their Nazi brethren over in Europe. Yes. But that's as political as I'll be getting today. I try not to get too political. I think most people who follow the channel, they know what side of the bread I've got butter on. For the most part, although I'm not, completely loopy. Let's see. I thought I just saw something pop up. Oh, there we go. The Madman welcoming my nephew Cameron home. Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of his friends were there. It was more for his friends. So Chris Lundgren's with us, says, sorry, they're late. They had a bit of an earthquake. Plus, I thought I saw Chris is under the weather, but it's not COVID. I saw that over on Facebook, I believe. So Stephen from Roll for Combat says he butters both sides. Actually, I don't. I only butter one side of my bread. It's just the way I am. I only do one side. I don't know why. I think the reason is because I tend to stack. Like if I have a couple of pieces of toast, I put butter on the one piece, and then I'll put butter on the other piece and then put it on top. So a little bit of butter gets on that second piece. Mayman says, being a veteran, having had family that served during the Second World War and saw combat, those people piss him off. Fleming Heron says, closest we get to bad guys from World War II over in Australia is Achtung Cthulhu. All righty then. So let's jump on into the news, because I've got a nice eclectic mix. There is a new solo/cooperative skirmish miniatures game, which has arrived in print and PDF from designer Joseph A. McCullouch. And here's what I know about Death Ship 1. Welcome to Death Ship 1. Better listen up, because the truth is you probably won't live long. You see, you've been brought here to die. I don't know why. Maybe it's a test or an experiment to measure the capability of warriors from your planet. Maybe it's just entertainment like a circus or game show. Maybe this is punishment, a personal purgatory for your sins. Now, I don't mean to bring you down. I just don't want to fill you with any false hopes either. On the other side of that door is a room, and beyond that, another, and another, and another. In fact, there are 5 rooms in total. Each of those rooms is designed to kill you in different ways. Traps, monsters, automated weapon systems, you name it. No, I can't tell you what the next room looks like, even if I wanted to. It changes every time. The rooms shift around you, you see. But you've got one chance. You've got to fight your way through all 5 rooms. In the unlikely event you survive, you get to go home. So it's that simple. You fight your way through, you survive. You might even find a few things to help you on the way. Seriously, though, make your peace before you open that door, because once you do, there's going to be no time for praying. Deathship 1 is a solo or cooperative miniatures game of science fiction survival. Choose a squad of soldiers from any time period, or even the future, and see if they can survive the horrors of the death ship. Designed to play fast with a minimum of rules and terrain, it makes miniatures gaming right now nitty-gritty, running, shooting, and dying. I think it's supposed to be, it takes miniatures gaming right down to the nitty-gritty of running, shooting, and dying, but it says now. So I think that's a little typo. Of course, Deathship 1 is designed by Joseph A. McCullouch, the creator of Frostgrave, Stargrave, Rangers of Shadow Deep, Oathmark, and The Silver Bayonet. This 58-page hardcover with PDF is available over at Drive-Thru RPG for $22.50. Or if you want to just score the PDF alone, you can do so for $12.50. Yes. I am sharing some images from the Deathship 1 release from Blaster Magazine, because I couldn't find 5 images for the book. So if you have Blaster Magazine, which tends to have kind of like updates to a lot of the Joseph A. McCullouch miniatures games, or new designs such as this, keep in mind that this new edition is, I think, twice as long. I think the rules in Blaster Magazine were about 22 pages. So this has, I'm going to take a guess, it's probably got more stat blocks. And I am kind of curious if maybe the old board game from SPI, Time Tripper, I wonder if that was an inspiration for this game. I wonder. Those of you who probably do not know what that game was it was a solitaire game, and you took the role of a Vietnam soldier who somehow gets warped into other timelines. So you might be fighting prehistoric cavemen, or you could be in the future and fighting off robots or Napoleonic soldiers, stuff like that. It was a pretty wild game. In fact, my good friend John Welsh, the game designer, who I don't think he's really doing much game design anymore, but that was one of his all-time favorite games. It was funny. And I remember he told me, one of my favorite games was Time Tripper. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, I have done that game in 30 years or whatever. I was like, I had that. I used to play that. I had that right up there with the monster that ate Sheboygan. Ooh. Kathy Evans is with us. Kathy was one of our winners last night. That's right. Won a pair of books, the 60 Years of Adventures from good old Cubicle 7 Entertainment for Doctor Who, the role-playing game, 2nd edition. I will get those out as soon as I get them. So stay tuned for that. I have to wait to get them. But I would think it might even be later on tonight. So, Kathy, stay tuned. I have not heard from her other winner. So hopefully they have an opportunity to check out the show. Of course, tonight I am going to share the 2 winners of Alien, the role-playing game, Building Better Worlds. So stay tuned for that. Yes. Chris Lundgren says, just shaking nerves. It was about 6 miles from them, the earthquake. So it shook hard. But other than that, all's good. Very nice. Chris Lundgren also points out, Deathship 1 looks cool. One of these days, I'm going to pick up Frostgrave 2nd edition. One of these days. One of these days, Alice. Bang, zoom. Yeah, that show wouldn't fly nowadays, would it? A little spousal abuse going on. Probably a lot more than a little. Anyway, I'd like to check it out. I'd like to check it out. And I think my nephew Cameron wants to start painting miniatures. So I think he wants to paint up the Fallout miniatures, but I'm going to try to teach him how to paint other stuff too. On to our next news piece. Following a successful Kickstarter, campaign builder Castles and Crowns for 5e Dungeons & Dragons and Tales of the Valiant is arriving in July. And I've got the skinny from my friends over at Kobold Press. Campaign builder Castles and Crowns is a homebrew toolkit for 5e and Tales of the Valiant role-playing game. This book contains multiple resources to help enhance your world with the intrigues of royalty. Rule your realm with this complete guide to kingdoms, rulers, and more. Campaign builder Castles and Crowns provides a majestic homebrew toolkit for your tabletop game. Create legendary rulers, mythic kingdoms, opulent palaces, and imposing fortresses down to the last detail with a host of tables and guides to enhance your world. Campaign builder Castles and Crowns brings you everything you need. Record your realm's important details on kingdom character sheets. Transform a dynastic game by awarding royal titles, creating factions, making war, and forging peace. Create detailed NPCs to populate your kingdoms, including rulers, courtiers, generals, jesters, guardsmen, and more. Enhance your kingdom-level campaign with interesting and functional castles, manors, and palaces. Plus, new player options, magic items, sample kingdoms, and spells for courtly characters. This 272-page hardcover will carry an MSRP of $49.99. That does not include the PDF. I think the PDF is $5 more if you get the bundle from Kobold Press. That's usually how it works. But if you want to just grab the PDF, you'll be able to do so beginning July 17th, or maybe a little before then, but I think it will be July 17th. It's going to carry an MSRP of $39.99. Cthulhu says, one of these days, I'm going to cut you into little pieces from Pink Floyd's One of These Days. Yes, well. Chris Lundgren says, he recently downloaded the Fallout Quick Start rules based on my review. Just need to find some dice online, but it looks cool. Are we talking Fallout the role-playing game or Fallout Wasteland Warfare? I think that was the one I shared. I think that was the title of it, because now they've got another one. I think they've replaced their skirmish level with a different title. I think the rules are fairly similar, though. Yeah, yes. Anyway, I gotta say, this looks pretty cool. I'm curious if we'll get an opportunity to take a peek at it, because the reality is, Kobold Press kind of sends me stuff out of the blue. All of a sudden, I get a package that shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right. I'll share coverage of this. Okay. And I'm sure that once again at Gen Con, I will have an opportunity to interview Wolfgang Bauer. In fact, I'm probably going to start reaching out to various different publishers next week. Even though it's early August, I want to kind of iron out my schedule for interviews, because Elliot and I were discussing our game playing at night, as well as our, adult beveraging at night. Pete Strakulich and Maddie C are hanging with the gang. Welcome aboard. Pete Strakulich says, much love for the Swolebalds. Let's talk about a money-saving deal, because Catalyst Game Labs and Bundle of Holding have teamed for a couple of 5th edition Shadowrun offers, and I've got deets on the Essentials deal. Runner, We've resuscitated our February 2019 Shadowrun 5e Essentials Bundle featuring PDFs for the 2013 5th edition of Shadowrun, the cyberpunk fantasy tabletop role-playing game from Catalyst Game Labs. This revival includes the complete Shadowrun 5th edition rulebook and all its key rule supplements in PDF. Everything you need for a campaign of mega corporate espionage and magical battle in the shadows of 2081. If you're new to Shadowrun, start here. Then check out the new companion offer, the SR5 Missions Mega Bundle, with many scenarios and source books that range across the sixth world. For just $19.95, you'll get all 3 titles in the core collection, which have a retail value of $70, including the complete Shadowrun 5th edition core book, the Master Index Edition, plus the free SR5 Quick Start Rules and SR5 Character Conversion Guide, the Player's Guide, Run Faster, and the Cyberware Catalog, Chrome Flesh. And if you pay more than the current threshold price of $30.53, you'll level up and also get the entire bonus collection with 4 more key SR5 supplements worth an additional $100, including the rules expansions for combat, run and gun, magic, street grimoire, the Matrix, data trails, and Riggers, Rigger 5.0. These savings run through June 24th, and 10% of your payment will be donated to the Diana Jones Award Emerging Designer Program. Of course, and it's your payment after gateway fees. Don't forget those gateway fees. Interesting is what I must say. For one, the 6th edition of Shadowrun is still being supported by Catalyst Game Labs. In fact, I think they just released a new supplement in PDF. So I'm kind of curious why they're rolling out the 5th edition bundle. And yes, I understand a lot of people feel the 6th edition of Shadowrun is a mess. A lot of people thought the 5th edition of Shadowrun was a mess. I did review the 6th edition Shadowrun beginner box, the starter set, whatever they called it. And that was kind of a mess. I did not care for that. I'm just curious. It doesn't seem like it's that great a deal as far as this bundle goes either. $30, 7 PDFs. Well, 7 releases, I guess. I guess altogether it's 9 PDFs because there are a couple of freebies that are in there, the quick start and the character conversion. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. I wonder what you think as far as this being a bundle for the previous edition. And we do see that from time to time. I understand that. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But there you have it. I had Shadowrun. I had Shadowrun back in the day when it first came out, when it was FASA, and picked up the splats and all that. And yes, it was another one of those role-playing games that I did not run. I don't know what it is about being a game master. I think game masters just have this, this innate itch built into them to just always be picking up new role-playing games just to read through them, just to kind of get your creative juices flowing and never run them. Yeah, Shadowrun was one of them. Matthew Blackwell is hanging out, says they're just listening tonight, working on getting the Castles and Crusades core rulebook into Foundry right now. Yes, there is going to be a Castles and Crusades I'm trying to remember what they're calling the new Kickstarter bundle, remastered or something like that. It is going to arrive on the 10th, so it's going to be on Monday. So what I will probably do is drop a news piece on Monday, and then I'll talk about it on Tuesday's show. But yes, they are releasing, they want to release a new core 3 books. I think it's for the 3, even though there's only 2. Thank you, Matthew says it's Reforged. That's what it is. Castles and Crusades Reforged. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that when I wrap up the news. All right, moving right along. Now available in print over at Exalted Funeral. Actually, it's available in hardcover. Is the Black Hack 2nd Edition Classic Monsters book from Squarehex. Here's the scoop. The Black Hack Classic Monsters is designed to support and enhance your Black Hack 2nd Edition games. It features over 240 monsters drawn from basic expert and 1st edition sources of the world's most popular fantasy role-playing game, all converted for use with the Black Hack. This will allow Black Hack GMs to easily use original or OSR modules in their games without having to convert all of the monsters that they contain. The Black Hack Classic Monsters includes monsters spell index and rules, monster conversion rules, as well as new poison and venom rules. Classic Monsters is a supplement aimed at giving Black Hack GMs rules for a wide range of monsters. The monsters have once again been selected from BX and 1st edition AD&D, and this makes Classic Monsters particularly handy for game masters who wish to run adventures written for those early games and many of their clones. The 40-page hardcover is available over at Exalted Funeral for $23. If you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $5. Now, this Black Hack 2nd Edition Classic Monsters book has been around for a while. This is the first time that it's available as a hardcover. Now, I almost shared news about the Black Hack Black Box from Exalted Funeral, which was back in print with the core rulebook for the Black Hack, which I like. I think it's pretty cool. I've got the PDF. I like it. There are some rules that I would certainly utilize, especially the kind of like attrition, the usage of gear, arrows, torches, rations, so on and so forth. I like those rules a lot where you're basically changing dice as they dwindle away. Definitely love that. Far better than tracking every arrow and, oh, well, let me go collect my arrows. Which ones are broken? I think that was a rule in Bushido. I think Bushido had a rule about gathering up your arrows, and he had to roll a 6-sided die, and I think on a 6 it was broken, or on a 1 they were broken. Yes. Anyway, it had a bunch of stuff packed into this black box. I think it was $77 as far as the MSRP, and I was starting to get the news ready, and then I noticed it was sold out. That had only been around for about 4 days, and it was sold out over at an Exalted Funeral. And I was like, oh, well, I see they've got the Classic Monsters book as a hardcover now. That's new, too. You know, I wish I had some sort of relationship with Exalted Funeral outside of them just following me on Twitter and I follow them on Twitter, because they have a lot of cool stuff that I would love to share with the audience. And I think the publishers, the creators would probably appreciate the coverage too. I don't know. I reached out once and actually never heard back from the person I was told to contact. Don't know. Maybe they just didn't like my stuff. It's a possibility. Pete Draculich says, I'm missing the Black Hack in their collection. It's, I think the PDF for the Black Hack over at Drive-Thru RPG is like $5. So it is pretty cheap to jump on board. I think you could get the monster book and the core book for like $10 combined. Russell Higgins says, that's a -1 difficulty. I'm old, decrepit legacy system. Even junior hackers. See, once again, I had that little heart thing that pops. Scoff at me. Must be talking about Shadowrun. Let's talk about my final news piece. Because available as a pay what you want, which means you can get it for free if you'd like, over at Drive-Thru RPG is the Outgunned Adventure Quick Start from Two Little Mice. I've got the dope. It's been a while. The world out there is full of unexplored jungles, lost pyramids, and cursed temples that are just waiting for an unprepared explorer to slip up. Collapsing floors, creaky bridges, poison darts, fire jets, and rolling boulders. You can expect all that and even more. Adventure is back. Outgunned Adventure is a pulp adventure game inspired by the classics of the genre. From the immortal Indiana Jones, who actually should be immortal, right? Right? Hey, he's supposed to, he should be. Drank from the Grail. To The Mummy, the 1999 edition of The Mummy. In Outgunned Adventure, the players take on the role of brave adventurers in search for invaluable treasure. Outgunned Adventure is the first genre book in the Outgunned line, and you can play it either standalone or as an expansion for Outgunned. Outgunned Adventure features a game system called the Director's Cut, a set of mechanics using small pools of six-sided dice to determine the outcome of adventurers' actions. When rolling dice, your goal is not to score the highest or lowest possible number, but to roll 2, 3, and 4 of a kind. The 73-page quick start of Outgunned Adventure, which you are seeing examples of those 73 pages right this moment, is pay what you want over at Drive-Thru RPG. I have got to say, when I share content from Two Little Mice, and I do not have any copies of their games, I do understand they are out of Italy. But I have to say, I am always impressed by their artwork. Their artwork always looks cool. And the artwork always sort of has a bit of, I guess I would say, as weird as this sounds, kind of an upbeat vibe. Even the cover art for Outgunned, which, if I remember correctly, I think it's Outgunned or it's the Outgunned supplement, shows this woman who's no doubt supposed to be the action hero wearing sunglasses, and one of her lenses is broken, and everybody's like pointing guns all around her. All you see are guns pointed at her, and she just got sort of this look like, yeah? Oh, yeah? Is that all you got? I understand there are people out there who have said Broken Compass is really, really good. Household is supposed to be very cool, where your characters are all like little tiny people. Willona's Cave is with us tonight, asking, have I spoken about solo role-playing game systems before? I'm taking a guess. Willona's Cave is asking if that's been a topic on the live show. It has not. One of the main reasons why it has not really been a topic, I think we talked a little bit about solo play, but I don't have really any experience. I don't play solitaire role-playing games. I'm not into like journaling games, which are, you know, some journaling games kind of marketed as role-playing games. I have not. like Mythic. I know Mythic is a big deal with a lot of people, that it's GM-less or solitaire or co-op. We've also talked about 4 Against Darkness, which is also solitaire or co-op. I think, if I remember correctly, it wasn't that long ago where I shared some options. That was kind of our topic, was I shared some options if you were interested in solo GM-less play or cooperative play, and some various different games I had heard good things about. But as far as tackling that as a topic, I don't have experience. So I tend to try to talk about things I know about so I don't look like a complete idiot. I might look like a partial idiot, but I don't want to look like a complete idiot. Roger Perdome and Tony Urquides are with us tonight. Russell Higgins is also hanging with the gang. All right, that is it for the news portion tonight. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, are affiliates of the One Bookshelf sites, because I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. If you are going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG or Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Gotta be honest, things have been kind of quiet over at the One Bookshelf sites lately. And I'm kind of curious if their new design in that, if it might not be affecting the affiliate codes. Because I know a lot of people out there do not like the new design. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of it either, because it takes forever to load. And it's like, seriously, and sometimes it doesn't load the page. So it doesn't load the product that you're looking for. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. Flaming Heron says, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and to remove all doubt. Pete Strakowicz says they'll buy their Barrow Maze through my link. Isn't that like $100 or something? Agile Monk is joining us. Good to see you. Okay, so before we dive on into my discussion of how to introduce the old school Renaissance to a table full of 5e Dungeons and Dragons players, couple of things. First off, let's tackle our contest. That's right, because I have got 2 copies of Alien, the role-playing game, Building Better Worlds in PDF, not this physical book. They are in PDF. So I've got them to give away at least tonight. I have brought up the commenters from that video ahead of time, as opposed to Tuesday night, where I'm like, all right, hold on, let me get this up there. It's like, wow, that's good content. Hey, everybody, let's just watch Jeff as he's scrolling. But you can't see what he's looking at. No, not at all. Okay, so there are 32 comments. I got percentile dice. We'll do green high. So what I'm going to do is, if it's like 1 through 32, I'll just take the straight number. If it's like 33 to 64, I'll divide by 2. And if it's over that, I'll divide by 3. Thankfully, I can do math in my head. I really can. So that is a huge bonus. All right, 45. We round up. 45. So that is 23. Semper Buffo is our first winner. Yes. Flaming Heron says, or just don't take anything over 32. See, with my luck, though, I would just keep rolling numbers over that. Flaming Heron says, I need a 32-sided die. I could have busted out a 30 from my Zaki dice set. All right. Next up. That's weird. 42. All right. 21. Gosuke 5. Gosuke 5. All right. Congratulations to both of you. All you got to do is jump through hoops. No. Just email Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. It's important you remember it is called thegaminggang.com. It is not Gaming Gang. Can't tell you how many people forget that it's the Gaming Gang. Oh, look, it's Jeff McAleer from Gaming Gang. No, it's the Gaming Gang. All right, so there you have it. There are our winners. Yes. Also want to mention, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Sparkling good. And of course, a big thank you to those out there who stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations, such as Agile Monk and the Madman very recently. But of course, thank you to all of you who use either the banner ads and or stop by paypal.me. It is really, really appreciated. All right, so as I mentioned, tonight I am going to discuss ways to introduce the old school Renaissance to 5e Dungeons & Dragons players around your table. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Well, you see what I get from the refreshment counter. Oh, boy, popcorn and candy bars and ice cream and, oh, boy, sparkling ice-cold Coca-Cola. Oh, boy, that tastes good. Have you been to the refreshment counter?
Remember, your favorite snack will taste especially good with world-famous ice-cold Coca-Cola.
Bowling sure makes me hot and thirsty.
This is a job for Kool-Aid.
Hey, Kool-Aid!
Oh yeah! Kool-Aid's here, bringing you fun. Kool-Aid's got thirst on the run. Get a big, wide, happy ear to ear.
Kool-Aid smile, 'cause the biggest smile is a Kool-Aid smile. A Kool-Aid smile, a Kool-Aid smile.
Dun-dun.
Your friend's cool.
My friend's Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid brand soft drink mix.
What happened to my car?
Do you drink Wilkins coffee?
No, so what?
Well, things seem to happen to people who don't drink Wilkins.
It must have been a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon that it began. The afternoon of June 3rd, 1916.
Fire 1, fire 2.
This could have been the end. The end of just another tragic episode in war at sea. But for the few survivors of a torpedoed merchant ship and the crew of a German U-boat lost in the frozen South Atlantic, it was the beginning of an incredible adventure. For this was the day the 20th century met the primeval world face to face. American International presents The Land That Time Forgot. an astounding motion picture based on the book by Edgar Rice Burroughs, creator of Tarzan and the most thrilling science fiction stories ever written. Travel through an underwater passage and discover an awesome prehistoric world. Fight for your life against the terrifying creatures of a lost continent. Come face to face with primitive man and learn the secret of evolution, the land that time forgot.
Mr. Tyler!
Starring Doug McClure.
There's a secret to this island. Something that we haven't been able to fathom yet. And whether we stay or get away may depend on it.
It's action, danger, and adventure on an epic scale.
How much longer do we give them?
We're not leaving without them! We're going to skip over! What's your name, please?
You will never forget Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Land That Time Forgot.
Could you handle all that pulse-pounding excitement in The Land That Time Forgot? I know. We were talking about that movie, and we were also talking about Doug McClure on Tuesday, so I thought, well, now I got to go find that trailer and share it. But I also have an interesting little tidbit about that movie. Now, when I was a small kid, see, my mom loves to gamble. And my mom and my grandmother loved going to Vegas. So what we would do every summer is we would go out west on vacation, and one of our stops would be Las Vegas for a couple of days. Usually we went to California, but we would have a 2, maybe 3-day stop in Las Vegas. And we drove. It was one of those kind of things, right? So every once in a while, we would actually go with my grandparents too. Once we all were in the same station wagon, and that wasn't going to happen again, because my grandfather used to be like, you left the house, you get to where you're going, that's it. Didn't want to stop at any place and check out any of the sites, anything like that. It's like, okay, we're going to California. We'll stop for gas. You can go to the bathroom. We're getting to California. So that didn't go over too well. But as a small kid, now I'm talking probably 9, 10 years old, my parents would allow my brother, who's older than me, he's 2.5 years older, to go to the movies in the afternoon. And then they would come and meet us at the theater to, take us back to the hotel, go for dinner, whatever. And usually what would happen is my grandfather didn't really care for gambling. He'd play like penny slot machines, and that was about it. So a lot of times we would hang out with him in the afternoons, and then we had a babysitter at night because it's Vegas, right? That was back when Vegas was Vegas. It was not for families. It was not for kids. It was, oh, you're walking through the casino with that child? Where are you going? Be like, oh, we're heading on to the buffet. Okay, well, do not stop. Keep going. That's how Vegas was. We're like, no kids standing out there in the casino. Get going. So there are 3 movies I remember as a kid of 10, 11 years old that I saw in Vegas. One was The Swarm, which was just god-awful. Even as a little kid, I knew that was complete trash. Oh, man, was that awful. I saw Gator with Burt Reynolds. I'm not sure when that came out. Late 70s? I think The Swarm is probably 77, 78, somewhere around there. And the third movie I remember seeing in Las Vegas is The Land That Time Forgot, starring Doug McCullouch. Yes. If you have not seen the movie, it is not as bad as it looks from that trailer. It is actually all right. It's okay. Yeah, the special effects are pretty hokey. But it's not too bad. Although the thing that kind of pisses me off is it's World War I, right? So it's a German U-boat that sinks a British, I think it's just a merchant vessel. And they save, the crew and, their passengers. And the German submariners are, they're just soldiers, right? It's not like they're Nazis or anything like that. Although the captain's second in command is a nutbag. So they're all decent guys. They're not, like goose-stepping Nazis or any shit like that. But they, spoiler, I get it. Yeah, I know. But this movie is like 50-some years old. They all get killed. And it's sort of like, really? Did you have to kill them all off? Come on. I mean, the captain was actually pretty cool. Why not? They were Germans. They had to die. This is how it works. All right, we've got a few more people who've popped on into chats. All right, let's see. Chris Burkhart, as well as Game Masters Hobby Game Cat, is also with us, as is Chuck Terrell. Achilles Lament is popping on in too. So it looks like we've got a nice chat rocking and rolling. Okay, so tonight, my topic is how to introduce the old school Renaissance to a table full of 5e Dungeons and Dragons players. And funny enough, the topic was originally going to be about why all the hate aimed at people who cover the hobby. Why? And the thing that kind of sparked it was Ginny D. Is it Ginny D or Ginny Die? I don't watch her videos, so I don't. But she's a really popular, mainly Dungeons and Dragons content creator. And Agile Monk says, oh, I'm sorry. Agile Monk saying I to someone else. I thought, it's pronounced Ginny D. Thanks. Kevin R. Smith is with us. I didn't see Kevin popping on in. Thank you, Kevin. But I had heard she had shared a video about she had encountered some tenets of the old school that she was incorporating into her games. And people are, ripping on her about, oh, she's like talking about how she made this and she created this and it's her invention and yada, yada, yada. And what a bitch. It's like, Michael Burrell is also popping in, says, you should watch her videos. They're great. I don't have time. It's just like, I would watch more of Seth's videos because I really enjoy his videos. I just never have time. It's because I don't watch the competition, man. No. I just don't. I don't really have time to be sitting there checking out other people's stuff. I mean, I have interests outside of gaming. Plus, got to remember, I took care of my dad. So, I mean, that is like my full-time job. So, let's see. So anyway, so I'm not going to, Kevin says I'm in time for tonight's rant. It's not a rant. I'm not doing a rant. One of these days, Kevin R. Smith's going to get band-hammered out. Just joking. Hey, speaking of band-hammers, I forgot to say hello to Miss Sarah D. I'll take a guess. She's floating around in the shadows. Don't know. Fleming Heron says, like I said, do you really have days off, Jeff? But anyway, They was like, wait, man. I'm like, what the hell? Chris Lundgren says she has not been very friendly towards the OSR. Well, you know, if you've ever seen my video where it's what is the OSR and is it filled with right-wing extremists? I still get people bitching at me about that. Want to explain to me that, oh, yeah, okay. Liberalism is actually fascism. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. But people can have their opinions. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Sarah D says yes. She is lurking as usual, saying howdy. Kevin R. Smith says, nobody says that to say Professor Dungeon Master or Bob World Builder. A couple of people I don't necessarily, I know who they are. In fact, I just shared a Kickstarter a couple of weeks ago for Bob World Builder. It's just, I don't watch their stuff. Kevin R. Smith says she's barely ever addressed OSR content because she started playing with 5e, and that's where the money is as a streamer. Yes, I could certainly understand that. But again, like I said, that was going to be the topic, and then I thought to myself, you know what? I really hate giving any of the trolls out there the time of day. So even discussing what bug is up these people's asses all the time, every single day. But it did kind of get me thinking, well, how do you introduce tenets of the old school Renaissance or old school revival, whatever you want to consider the OSR or especially the R representing, to people who are only 5e D&D players? And this is going to be a huge, long topic or anything like that. But the first thing I would say as a game master, because I know it tends to be the dungeon masters, for the most part, kind of burn out a bit on 5e D&D. And that's not to say that game masters don't get burned out on other game systems. I mean, it happens. Maybe we'll do that as a topic next week. How to combat game master burnout. That sounds like a good topic. So Sean O'Donnell says you can only dwell on negativity so long before you're encouraging it. Yeah. Matthew Blackwell says leave out Thaco. Yeah, that's a good idea. Right off the bat there. You're not going to be rolling out any combat matrices or Thaco to 5e D&D players. No, I'm not recommending that to introduce them to the OSR. But the first thing that I would say is you want to make sure that the people at your game table are going to, number one, be receptive to it. And number two, and this might sound insulting, but able to grasp it. And the reason why I say that is, now I do not run 5e D&D. I'm familiar with the rules. I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, an expert on 5e D&D. I say it all the time. If anybody wants to beat me to the punch here, I'll give you a second in chat. I don't really care that much about the rules. Yes, I use the rules as a skeleton for gameplay, for action resolution. But I'm telling you, I never use grappling rules and shit like that. But especially with Dungeons and Dragons, I know that there are a lot of dungeon masters out there who have tables full of players who approach D&D as if it were a video game, as if it were a game where there are limitations to what you can do. Great example, I was running a Call Cthulhu adventure for my nephew and one of his friends, and a third friend came by because he had told my nephew Cameron that he wanted to check it out. I mentioned this before. He wanted to check it out, but he didn't want to play. He just wanted to see what it was like. So he showed up. We're in the middle of the adventure and stuff. And then he started like kind of throwing ideas out there. And I said, whoa, hey, hold on. You're not playing. You're not playing the game. You can't throw stuff in there, right? And then he'd be like, you could tell he was trying to figure out, it was like he didn't understand that it was the character, the player could say their character was doing whatever popped into the player's head. That it wasn't like, oh, well, I'm allowed to do this and only this. And then my nephew had another friend who was like that. We were playing kind of an old school Essentials adventure, kind of pretty rules light. And he was the same way. And we had to keep explaining, especially my nephew Cameron, had to keep explaining, hey, no, this isn't a video game. You can do anything. You have to roll dice. If it's something, insane, you're not going to be able to do it, but you can try it. So I would say if you are a dungeon master and that is how your table is, if all of your players are always scanning their character sheets to see what is the applicable skill, or if you have players when they parlay or get into a discussion with NPCs and things like that, only roll dice. Oh, I'm going to use this skill. Okay, so I'm going to use this. If they can't role play even the idea of what their conversation is, I'm going to tell you right now, trying to introduce concepts from the old school Renaissance to those kind of players, it's going to be like shoveling fleas across a barnyard. I personally would not do it. Just want to get that out there. If your players don't have a lot of imagination, and I'm sorry, that's just how it is. There are a lot of people out there, they do not have the ability to visualize from the spoken word or the written word either. And part of that is because, for the most part, they don't read and they haven't been readers. So they haven't had to try to process things in their imagination. So everything that they see in a role-playing game has to be parsed through a TV show they saw or a movie they saw or an anime that they watch. That's something else I had noticed with my nephew's friends. They'd be like, oh, well, you mean like blah, blah, blah show? I guess. Be like, ugh. So I'm just letting you know that right up front, because the OSR is not for everyone. It's just not. I mean, some people don't like the low level of power that the player characters have, especially early on. There's some people who just don't dig it. Some people don't dig what they feel is the lack of customization for their characters. Yeah, I could see that with certain rule sets, sure. So once again, kind of floated out there. And in some ways, it might be easier for tables like that to try to incorporate concepts of the OSR, but not a new rules system. That might be an idea. Or what you can also do is say, hey, everybody, you know, I know we all gathered around together to play this chapter of XYZ adventure from Wizards of the Coast, but I'm going to run a one-shot tonight. And I just want to try something out. You can hit people up with that kind of stuff, too. Will it go over well? I don't know. I don't know. If it doesn't, then you can say, well, okay, next week we'll continue on with Watsy's presentation of whatever. Pete Strakolich says Knave 2nd Edition is cool, which is funny because I have been hearing loads of complaints about Knave 2nd Edition. I find that kind of interesting. I think part of it is driven by the whole Gary Con fiasco. Yes. Oh, this is a Kickstarter exclusive that we're selling at Gary Con before our supporters actually got fulfillment of their books. Okay, or their box sets too. Yeah. I think that's got a little bit to do with it. But some people I've heard talk about Knave 2nd Edition is just a lot of stuff that doesn't feel like it was play tested. Some of the tables that are thrown in there just don't seem to mesh well. I've heard a lot of complaints about the economy system. So there's that too. Chris Burkett says, I started on 1st edition, never moved on. I got into other role-playing games like MERPS, Gamma World, Call of Cthulhu. Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way to avoid the Game Master burnout. So I'm going to address some of the chat, and then we'll get back into the topic at hand. Chris Lundgren asked about new SR and things like that. It's a completely different conversation. I've talked about new SR in the past, though. And Darius Termina is with us. Good to see you once again. I've been doing my own homebrew overhaul of the 5e racial system. It's very much making it my own. I tell people all the time, I don't care what role-playing game that you're using. Kit bash it, as we like to say, those of us who were kit bashers, right? Yeah. Adjust, make things your own. House rule stuff. I say it time and time again. Nobody from Wizards of the Coast, unless you've got Magic the Gathering cards that you shouldn't have in your possession, they are not going to send the authorities over to your house banging on your door saying, hey, I'm sorry, you're having wrong fun. Chris Burkhardt says, today I play some OSR, but mainly I play free league games. Thanks to the subs who just videos getting familiar with RuneQuest. Cool, sweet. Achilles Lament says, I also asked them if they know what Gygaxian D&D is. How much of a blank face do you get from most of those people when you ask? Little bit of drool kind of pools up in the corner of their mouth. And judge their reaction from there. Pete Strakolich points out, Winter's Daughter, which is part of the Dolmenwood setting for Old School Essentials, is a great introduction to the OSR. Yeah, it really has the flavor of the OSR. That is for certain. Michael Burrell says, first edition was a character meat grinder. They didn't last long enough for you to get too attached to them. Madman says his wife has done a lot of reading, but still has a difficult time visualizing. She played a little D&D 2E years ago and still did great. Makes no sense to him. Kevin R. Smith says, supposedly they're shipping the books to backers. Oh, I guess he's talking about Knave 2nd Edition. Chris Burkhardt says they don't like the 5e superhero fantasy. Game Master's Hobby says, my gaming table is just married with D&D. So far, they've only liked Dragonbane, but at the end of the session, always the same question. When are we coming back to D&D? So right there, that is a table I would probably not look to introduce any sort of new system. But you might want to consider rolling out some tenets, as I've said before, of the old school Renaissance, where it's more player agency. It's more about this than this, where it's rulings, not rules. And from my experience and talking to various different people over the years, it seems as if 5e D&D players get a good representation of the OSR when they first play an adventure, they'll take to it. But if it's just simply, poorly run, or they don't really understand, how open-ended everything is, they will have some issues with it. Chris Lundgren says, I found clunky flipping back and forth for the charts. You roll low to hit and roll high for saving throws. There's a small community to the game and additional classes. Sean O'Donnell says they tried Cairn, which stole some stuff from Knave, which stole some stuff from Black, which stole, come on. It's not stealing, it's cribbing. Game masters do that all the time. I just talked about how many game books I would buy years ago just to crib ideas from. Never ran them. Venom 12 is with us. Welcome aboard. Might be a first-time visit in chat. Said they've run two different, gonna take a guess, it's Castles and Crusades campaigns. They always end in total party kills. They always end up back at 3.5. Well, 3.5 is still far crunchier than 5e. 3.5, in my opinion, is still closer to AD&D than 5e is. I'm not overly familiar with 3.5 or 3 or 2 or 4. I will point that out. I'm not very well versed, but I've always kind of had a feeling that you're looking at a bit more adjacency from 3.5 to AD&D than 5e. Although I have heard stories about designing 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, they relied on a lot of the old timers, a lot of the grognards. I don't know if I buy into that. Okay. All right, back to the topic at hand. So let's say you do have a table that's maybe interested, maybe curious about the OSR. These are the things I would focus on as far as your first adventures and explaining to your players what's different about the OSR, or even, has been brought up, many new SR releases. Kind of focus on what makes it different and what appeals to you as the game master that you want to run it. Most players will humor their dungeon master for a session or two and check out something new. Now, as a dungeon master, you better be enthusiastic about it. All right, everybody, we're going to... It's like, okay. It's like, check it out now. So you want to talk to them about what sets this apart. And there are a wide variety of different things. We're going to focus on just a few of them. Number one, it is a far more lethal game than 5e D&D. First level characters in Dungeons and Dragons are supposed to already be experienced adventurers. They are supposed to be I don't want to say miles above, but they are certainly head and shoulders above the average person. Interestingly enough, the average low-level NPC is like heads and shoulders above the average person too. So it's I find 5e D&D to be a little odd because it's sort of like everybody is kind of super heroic. It's like, really? So aren't there like zero level anybody around here? So of course, early on, low-level characters, yeah, they take dirt naps at a fairly regular pace. Once again, I think the lethality of old school Renaissance role-playing games or retro clones, we'll say retro clones, because they represent the old school mechanics, I think in a lot of ways, it's overblown. It's overblown in the same respect as every Call of Cthulhu adventure campaign ends with everybody insane or everybody dead, total party kill, and you've already gone through multiple characters during the adventure too. That doesn't really take place as often as people think. Flaming Heron says, this is why 5e players are the hardest to convert to OSR. 5e is very easy. See, I disagree. I don't think 5e is easy at all. I think mechanically it's clunky. I've always said this. It's not as if it's like, oh, well, Wizards of the Coast are dickheads, so now I'm going to... No, I've always said I have found 5e D&D to be mechanically clunky, and it wants to sit there and tell you that, essentially you should have rules for all these things, but we're not going to tell you what the rules are. So it's sort of like, okay, all right. So make sure they understand, okay, so far more lethality. Also, I know one of the difficult selling points for the OSR to 5e D&D players is that at first glance, the player characters, their classes and things like that are all very, very similar. That you don't have the customization options as you would have in 5e D&D. But the reality is, it's what happens in the adventuring that makes the characters unique. And they will grow by way of their adventuring as opposed to, oh, well, now I get to get this ability because, or I get this feat because now I'm this level. Also, the old school Renaissance normally is not just arbitrary leveling up, that you do need to earn your leveling up, which I like. Now, I also like the Dungeon Crawl Classics way of leveling up, where it's like, okay, well, each encounter is worth so many experience points. Now where it's like, okay, hang on, let me bust out the scientific calculator here. So there are 10 goblins, and 2 of them are goblin shaman. All right, okay. All right. Square root of... No, it's usually like Dungeon Crawl Classics is, that was 2 experience points. And to go to get first level in a funnel, you need 10 experience points. And then so on and so forth. So there is also that, where there's a misconception that, one fighter is the same as every other fighter. If all you're looking at is the character sheet, yes, sort of. As long as those attributes are different, there is going to be a difference in characters. But what people forget is that the limits of that character are your imagination, not what's on a character sheet. So I think that's also important to point out. Should also mention a combat with 4 goblins is not going to take an hour and a half. I think, in my opinion, that is a huge selling point too. The OSR adventures tend to have a lot of interactivity going on. There's a lot of interaction with the environment. It isn't just, here's 4 paragraphs of read aloud, and then you get attacked by something. Regardless of what you're going to do, you got attacked by something. All right, we got quite a few more people popping into chat. We have Arthur Hofert, who I believe might be visiting chat with us for the first time. Death Angel's Shadow is here, as is, I saw somebody else pop in. Oh, there we go. Gleeman RX. Gleam 1 RX. I'm just going to say Gleam. Gleam is with us. And so's Gloop. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was Gleep. Sorry, Gleep and Gloop are not with us. Just Gleam. So there are some questions about, well, what are some old school Renaissance role-playing games that I would recommend? I'm going to get to that in just a second. Because what I do recommend is I recommend, if you're trying to introduce the OSR to 5e Dungeons & Dragons players, you have essentially 2 options. One option is stick with 5e mechanically and look to try to incorporate what's going on as far as the old school Renaissance themes, the vibes, which can be pretty difficult if you're using the 5e rule set, right? Because as characters level up, they become super heroic. How are you going to tone that down? It's going to be kind of difficult to do that. But if your players are hell-bent on it's D&D or nothing, because you don't want to lose your gaming group over wanting to run the OSR or skewing towards the OSR. And let's be honest, players can be fickle. So we do realize there are some players out there where it's like 5e or bust. It's D&D or bust. You don't necessarily want bust. Cracks the Bold is popping on in. So one option is making adjustments to your 5e D&D. Probably not my recommendation, but worst case scenario, that's what you can go with. What I would recommend is introducing an old school vibed game, not necessarily a retro clone. I wouldn't recommend going like old school essentials or going, say, old school essentials, advanced fantasy, where you have the separation of class and race, and you have more classes to choose from. I wouldn't go BX, even though it's got the D&D DNA, because, you know, suddenly now it's like, well, wait a second. I've been playing a tiefling warlock, and now you just want me to play a dwarf? That's all I am, is just, I'm a dwarf. That's my class and race. So I don't recommend going in that direction. What I would recommend is going to a game that's relatively adjacent. Number one, it's been mentioned, I've seen it in chat already, Castles and Crusades. Castles and Crusades is similar in some ways mechanically to 5e D&D. Still rolling 20-sided dice, rolling high. You've got your ascending armor class. You've still got the variety of different classes, species, different abilities as characters level up. But Castles and Crusades is built for old school Renaissance adventuring. And it can be a little tricky because I know that primary and secondary attribute thing throws some people off. But personally, I think that is an excellent customization option that 5e D&D doesn't have. So, okay, so I'm playing a cleric, and, cleric's prime attribute is wisdom. But I want to play a cleric that's like a little more martial. Okay, well, then, make sure you choose strength as another primary attribute. Or you want to play a fighting man who's a bit of a Sherlock Holmes sort of character, right? With a lot more mental processing than the average, fighter will have. Awesome. Strength and intelligence. Those are your primary attributes. So I don't think Castles and Crusades is that different from 5e D&D mechanically that you would get a ton of pushback as far as utilizing that. I would also say, if you are kind of up in the air on how your players are going to react to trying to go a bit OSR at the game table, don't invest a lot of money. I know a lot of dungeon masters out there, a lot of game masters out there spend a lot of money. I used to do it all the time. I've mentioned it twice already tonight. How much stuff I would just buy and never run. So you don't want to make a huge investment if you're a bit leery about how your game table is going to react. So another recommendation I would have is Basic Fantasy. Go to basicfantasy.org. You got adventures, you got rule books, you got all that stuff absolutely free in PDF. You could play for years with just what you can download for free in an hour over at basicfantasy.org. Absolutely no doubt about that. And if you want physical books, if you want physical soft covers, you can get the core rulebook in hardcover. You can essentially get those at cost. So Chris Gonnerman does just a wonderful job overseeing an absolutely fantastic community for Basic Fantasy. And once again, you are looking at mechanically something that is not hugely different than 5e D&D. Now, approach-wise, yes, it is old school. It is old school. Now, funny enough, the 3 games I'm going to mention with this topic, I started holding up 4, and I was like, wait a second. Can't get rid of the other one. In my opinion, our old school Renaissance, other people don't believe so. They don't feel that they're OSR, which is fine. Some people feel the OSR should be represented only by games that are built mechanically on original D&D, white box, brown box, whatever color box you got your hands on, AD&D or Basic Expert. I don't look at it that way. I look at OSR as a mindset, an approach to role-playing fantasy adventures, and even non-fantasy. I mean, there are OSR games for science fiction and gonzo post-apocalyptic and things like that too. So Pete Stracklich has beat me to the punch on number 3. Number 3 is Dungeon Crawl Classics. Once again, rolling 20-sided dice, roll high. There is advantage and disadvantage. Now, with advantage and disadvantage, it just operates a little differently. You're rolling smaller or bigger dice. And I don't mean physical size. And I get it, yes. One of the turnoffs for some people with Dungeon Crawl Classics are the Zaki dice. It's like, what, I got to buy more dice? Okay, yes, I get it. They're what, $10 on Amazon? If you got Prime, you don't even have to worry about shipping. And I've got to say that with Dungeon Crawl Classics, the funnel adventure is what will grab them. The funnel adventure is, I think, what normally will grab most people with Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, once they become a first level character, then, of course, that unlocks the special abilities of the various different classes. And, of course, magic is bonkers. So if you've got magic users at your 5e table who just love casting spells, they will probably dig the fact of the mercurial magic that is available in Dungeon Crawl Classics. So should mention that as well. So those are three, once again, very similar mechanically in the action resolution, right? Dungeon Crawl Classics, rolling a d20, rolling high. You're looking to beat an armor class. You're looking to beat a difficulty class. Very similar there. Castles and Crusades, same kind of thing. Basic fantasy, once again, ascending armor class, rolling a d20, and so forth. So if you want to use a new rule set, I would say those three are probably going to be the best fit for you. So I'm going to jump back to chat real quick, and then I'm going to wrap up. Chuck Terrell says, Hyperborea intrigued the player with the art. Maybe appeal to them with Theater of the Mind based on old school monsters to start. I like Hyperborea. That I wouldn't do. I'm just saying, it would not be a system I would look to try to get 5e players pumped on. Yes, maybe the artwork would appeal to some folks. Probably not many of them. Because remember, these are 5e D&D players. They are used to the Wizards of the Coast art style, which is certainly not what they're going to find inside Hyperborea. Arthur Hofert says, since 5e takes so much from the Siege engine anyway. Good point. Very good point. Castles and Crusades, new edition of Player's Handbook and Castle Keeper's Guide will be on Kickstarter next week. I thought they're also going to do a new edition of the Monsters and Treasures. Because the big deal about this new edition, because it's not a new print run, it is a new edition, is that they want to get rid of all the references to the open game license. So I would think they need to do Monsters and Treasures. And yes, it kicks off on Monday. I'll have a news piece on thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, I'll talk about it on Tuesday when I do my next live show. Game Master's Hobby says, if my table wants 5e D&D, I'll say sure. And I'll show up with Animal Adventures. Well, isn't Animal Adventures, isn't that like a supplement that uses 5e? Death Angel Shadow says, well, come on. We DMs are just built that way. We buy all manner of stuff we'll never run. Oh, yeah, I'm right with you. I completely understand that. I'm sure over the years, I had purchased, sadly enough, tens of thousands of dollars of stuff that never got run. And I moved around so many times, so often. A lot of times I'd give stuff away so I didn't have to move it. Chris Burkett says, show up with my copy of The Warren. Game gets no love. Yeah, I have very little familiarity with The Warren. Isn't that Metamorphosis Alpha? Cracks the Bolt says, basic fantasy, some notebooks and sheets of graph paper. You're done. Arthur also says, Chris Gonderman is the GOAT. I agree. He goes way beyond what's needed to support basic fantasy. And I say all the time when people say, oh, the hobby's too expensive. I'm like, oh, well, you're looking to run like fantasy role-playing? Yeah. You don't mind PDFs, reading PDFs? No. All right. Basicfantasy.org. Enjoy. All you got to do is get a dice app, which are also free. Done. Okay, maybe you got to buy some paper. Sorry, you got to buy some paper. Rob Stopper is joining us. This might be a first-time visit for Rob Stopper as well. Chris Lundgren says the ultimate edition of Dark Places and Demogorgons is now out. It's massively improved look and quality. Looks very 5e in style now. Yes, Mr. I'm trying to remember his first name. Mr. Bloat. I think that's his last name from Bloat Games. I have heard good things about his game books. I've never had an opportunity to take a peek. Semper Buffo says, lots of stuff bought for lore. So, pretty long show. So I'm going to wrap up. So if you are looking to introduce the old school Renaissance to a table full of 5e Dungeons & Dragons players, I recommend Eric Bloat. Thank you, Chris. I recommend two approaches. One, introduce the thinking of old school Renaissance play into your 5e games, which is not going to be as easy as people think it is. Because 5e Dungeons and Dragons is not designed for that sort of gameplay. It is designed for super heroic gameplay. I mean, that's honest God truth. That's why dungeon masters complain how difficult it is to kill players. And it's sort of like, no, it's not. You just kill them. You're the dungeon master. It's like, I don't get it. Number one, if you're a game master or dungeon master, you shouldn't be sitting there like, damn, I just can't kill these characters. You should never be. You should always be rooting for your characters. You should root for the players. You should throw things in their way to make them stumble, to make their lives more difficult. But you should always be on their side. I don't understand. You just can't kill players. Not players, characters. Yeah, you can't kill players. Don't do that. Please do not do that. Well, Jeff over on Gaming Gang said it's all right. Remember, I said it's the Gaming Gang. If you're going to call me out and say I told people that it was okay to kill their players at the game table, you better get the fucking website right. But yeah, I don't get they can't, there's too much survivability. Okay. You're fudging dice for other stuff. Fudge dice about them getting killed. Crying out loud. Gleeman RX says, imagine there are people these days who think paper is too high a bar for entry. Well, if everybody's got a tablet, I'm sure they could put their character sheets on that. So you can try to adjust 5e D&D. I don't think it's as easy as people might think it is. So what I would recommend is try to go with a game system that has an OSR focus, but is kind of 5e adjacent in ways so that your players don't feel like complete fish out of water. And 3 of them that I mentioned, and there are more, don't get me wrong, not just these 3, but these are 3 that I'm very familiar with. Castles and Crusades, Basic Fantasy, and Dungeon Crawl Classics. And of course, Basic Fantasy is absolutely free. The player handbook for Castles and Crusades is also absolutely free. I know right now they're doing get the player handbook absolutely free if you sign up to be notified for their Kickstarter. I am not positive if that is going to be the brand new player's handbook or if it's just the player's handbook that they've been giving out for free for years, which is the core book you need. The Castle Keeper's Guide, I point this out, is all optional. So if you are going to be running Castles and Crusades, 2 books you really need. One, obviously, is the Player's Handbook. It's got everything. All the rules, all the Game Master advice, all that stuff is in there. And then Monsters and Treasures has, obviously enough, the Monsters and Treasures. That's really all you need. And I should also point out one thing that I really like about Castles and Crusades is it's pretty damn easy to port over any module from Dungeons & Dragons or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons up to about 3.0. Gleeman RX says, Troll Lord's email says it will be the new player's handbook. Cool. I thought it was. I just didn't want to say it. Because if I say, oh, they're going to give you the free player's handbook, and it's not the case, you know who people are going to complain about. It won't be Troll Lord Games they complain about. And of course, Dungeon Crawl Classics is a blast. It's a wild game. I get a kick out of it. I get a kick out of reading the adventures. And as I mentioned, later on this month, we are going to kick off a funnel adventure for the gang for Dungeon Crawl Classics. And I love the fact that everybody's excited about it. It's very nice. Very cool. All right. That is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, normally Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Harnmaster, the 3.5 edition from Columbia Games. But of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you watch live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you. If I did not have an opportunity to say hello to everyone who popped into chat, I apologize. You know, I always try to say hello to everybody who joins us in chat. So if I missed you, sorry about that. But thanks for tuning in. Of course, I know a lot of people, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the almost 2,000 videos here on the channel. All right. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your week, weekend, Monday. And of course, the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is when you're watching this. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. I know somebody told me, hey, don't point. So there you go. Your gang. Hopefully I see you next week.